Meet Jay, the absolute strongest player in his guild, and trust me, you're about to see how it all goes wrong. His friends are cornered, about to be wiped out by a rival group led by Sirro, the Thunder Queen. The situation looks hopeless, and the kill order is given. That's when Jay shows up to protect his team. He's strong enough to save everyone. He tells his friends not to worry, but the real enemy, oh, they were right beside him. His own friends attack him from behind with a single, fatal strike. The worst betrayals always come from the ones you trust the most. The girl starts mocking him, revealing she paid off the others with a few million. Meanwhile, Jay, who's poor and plays the game to survive, is about to lose everything. The death penalty in this game would bankrupt him in the real world. His real name is Jae Yun. He thought he could trust people, but money proved him wrong. Waking up back at his house, he screams, absolutely crushed by the defeat. Warlord is the most popular VR game on the planet, making fortunes for the top players. Jae Yun was known for his incredible skill, but he was loyal. He chose to stay with a small guild because they were the first to give him a chance. Now consumed by pure rage, he grabs his things and storms out. Stick with me, this is where it gets crazy. He's going to get revenge in real life. On the way, his friend calls him. But Jay is blinded by fury. He doesn't even see the red light. The truck comes out of nowhere. He gets hit full force, leaving him with devastating injuries. But even in agony, all he can think about is revenge on those traitors. Suddenly, the world around him shifts. He's back inside the Warlord game tutorial. The system gives him a simple command: defeat the Minotaur monster. Totally confused by what's happening, he hears two players screaming for him. They beg him for help, saying the monster has injured most of their party. Now it's just the three of them left to face this thing. Looking at the colossal creature, our hero wonders why it's even here. It was removed from the game 5 years ago for being way too hard. The other two players are confused. They tell him the game only launched 10 months ago. And right there it hits him. You and I know what this means. He's gone back 5 years in time. The players urge him again to help them take down the monster. He just grabs his sword and charges in, all by himself. The Minotaur lunges, but Jay dodges easily and slices it to pieces in one move. The two players are completely stunned and immediately invite him to join their guild. At that moment, our hero thinks about his past and how his friends betrayed him for cash. Without a single word, he kills both players on the spot. He's made a decision. In this life, he will never trust anyone again. After logging out, Jay wakes up in the real world. Looking around, he's not at home. He's in a V-Gear store, the place that sells equipment for playing Warlord. Jay remembers, 5 years ago, he was so broke he had to use a free demo unit. Slowly it sinks in. He really, truly has traveled back in time. With this second chance, he realizes there is absolutely no time to waste. He has 5 years of future game knowledge and all the skills he ever learned. He knows if he plays his cards right, revenge is finally within his grasp, and trust me, you'll want to see this. So he immediately tries to buy a brand new V-Gear unit on credit. The store clerk is a little weirded out by his desperation, but tries to run the payment anyway. But just as John's mind was racing with plans for revenge, the clerk cut in. The card didn't have enough funds, and that's when reality slammed back into him. Of course, he had no money. If he did, he wouldn't be playing on a demo unit. He couldn't afford the gear now, but Jae Hyun knew it was just a matter of time. He would make a fortune in this game, but first, he needed the gear. Then Jae Hyun glanced over and saw Sil, right there on an advertisement. She was trying to recruit new players for Warlord, the famous Thunder Queen. A role model to thousands, and a complete hypocrite, that's why she was in the ads. Jae Hyun knew he was out of options, and as much as he hated her, he couldn't afford to be picky. Not right now, sometime later, back at his place, a brand new V-Gear unit arrived. An equipment technician quickly set it all up, installing the unit and leaving it ready to go. And John knew the only reason he had this gear was because of a loan. a 10 million won loan, to be exact. He'd borrowed it from a loan shark who didn't hesitate for a second. Even for a huge sum like that, but he'd pulled a knife on John, making a promise. If John couldn't pay him back, things were going to get very, very ugly. John never wanted to go down this road, but it was his only choice. He figured even if it meant crawling through hell, he'd do it for a shot at revenge. And with that, John logged into his very own V-Gear cabin for the first time. He was immediately back in Warlord, back inside his character, Hurkan. Now back in the game, John knew it was time for a certain key character to show up. And right on cue, an NPC appeared before him. She congratulated Jae Hyun on finishing the tutorial. Her name was Ariadne. And she was here to guide him through the class selection process. Ariadne explained that the adventurer was ready to choose his basic class. He had 3 options, and his choice would define his future abilities. First up was the warrior class, a close-range fighter skilled with all weapons. Perfect for anyone who loves action-packed, adrenaline-fueled battles. John remembered choosing this in his past life, but he leveled up fast then. That was because he had a team. This time he was all alone. It would be way harder. Ariadne then offered the priest class, explaining it was a support role. Healing and buffing allies, but Jae Hyun immediately shot it down. He wasn't about to waste his time babysitting other players, not this time. In that case, Ariadne said, only the third option remained. And with a word, she blessed Hurkan with his new class, sending him to the class tower. There an old elder greeted him. The NPC introduced himself as Galko. He was the guide to the path of magic. Galko then asked what kind of magic Hurkan planned to learn. Getting straight to it, Hurkan declared, dark magic. Galko was taken aback by the request. He asked if the young man was sure. But Hurkan's answer was firm. He was absolutely sure. Hearing this, Galko warned him that powerful dark magic devours the user's soul. It's dangerous. John said he knew, and that was the exact reason he wanted to learn it. Seeing his persistence, the elder's entire demeanor changed, revealing his true colors. Galko says it's been a long time since a young man asked to walk this path. Then he reveals a dark tome, telling Hurkan that if he's ready, he should begin. He tells John to place his hand on the skill book, but warns him that this path is treacherous, even for the faint of heart. But stick with me, because John doesn't hesitate for a second. He slaps his hand down, declaring his heart isn't weak and that he wants to get this over with. The wizard erupts into a maniacal laugh, thrilled that finally someone interesting has appeared. For the first time, John feels the oppressive flow of dark magic. He remembers stories from his past life, whispers of a certain necromancer player. A player who once cleared an entire boss raid completely solo. And at this moment, that is the power John is seeking, the power of a necromancer. With his class and skills finally set, John makes his first move, using the bone shard skill. Alright, this is the moment we've all been waiting for, the first summon. The special ability of the necromancer class. Now, John needs to level up. He plans to head straight for the nearest dungeon, but one look at his new ally. And John sees its head just fell right off. He realizes this won't be as easy as he thought. A short while later, John enters the training dungeon, but he's already on edge. He can't stop thinking about how incredibly fragile that first skeleton was. Because according to his knowledge from his past life, skeletons were never this weak. John takes a moment to check the skeleton's stats, and he immediately sees the issue. Its weakness is all because of low proficiency, so John has to level up and fast. Soon after, a few wolves appear to confront him, and John thinks this is perfect. These wolves aren't very strong, but they are incredibly fast. They're the perfect test subjects for his new combat performance. With that, John summons his skeleton again and orders his ally to engage the monsters. As soon as the skeleton rises, it assumes a battle-ready stance and faces the wolves. Head-on, with that, John orders his ally to eliminate the enemies. Immediately, the skeleton charges toward the enemies. John thinks that if he keeps this pace, He'll reach a high level faster than he ever expected. However, that hope is shattered. It shatters the moment John watches his ally get utterly destroyed right before his eyes. John truly did not expect such a catastrophic outcome. The only thing left is the skeleton's head. Despair grips John as he realizes something is terribly wrong. So he decides to check his allies' stats one more time. Then he sees it. He forgot to set a mode, which is why the skeleton fell so quickly. So John chooses defense mode for his ally. Even with that, the skeleton loses, again. In that case, he decides to test out the special action mode. But instead of fighting, the skeleton starts dancing with the wolves. And yeah, you heard that right, dancing. John is left absolutely bewildered. He starts to think this has to be a nightmare because there's no time to start over. There's no way to change classes, and his loan payment is already due soon. Just when John thought he was finally making some progress, he got slammed 2 steps back. Not only that, but he's stuck with a completely useless ally. It makes John wonder. How did the legendary necromancer from his past life get so strong with this class? Suddenly, John's system flashes an alert. There's an option available. An option to boost the skeleton's combat prowess. See, before, John had to fight the wolves all by himself, while his skeleton just stood there doing nothing. But then a realization hits John. The skeleton wasn't just standing by, it was observing him, learning to fight from what it witnessed, and that's the moment you and I have been waiting for. Trust me, you're about to see how our guy evolves a skeleton's combat abilities. He shoves a stick into the skeleton's bony hand, telling his new ally it's lucky to be one of his minions. See, in his past life, John was a legendary genius, capable of taking guild novices and forging them into top-tier rankers. John tells his new soldier one simple thing: if you don't dodge, you're going to be crushed. Well then, John slams a blow into the skeleton, repeating the assault over and over until his ally finally starts to learn how to dodge, but the progress is agonizingly slow. John barks at his minion, don't just stand there after taking a hit. Dodge first, find an opening, and then you counterattack. After a grueling training session with its master, the skeleton is once again thrown into the fight against the wolves. This time, however, the skeleton performs flawlessly. Now pay attention, because this is where the training pays off. It weaves, dodges, and counters every attack with deadly precision. The skeleton defeats the wolves all by itself. John admits his ally still has a long way to go, but he can already see the massive improvement. What's more, Yihan's own skills have progressed. And thanks to his ally's newfound skill, he levels up. Sometime later, Yihan makes his way to the game's starting village, Figus Castle. Inside the village, countless recruiters are shouting, trying to enlist new members into their guilds. John, however, walks right past them all. His mind is focused on one single goal: making his ally stronger, which in turn will boost his own personal attributes. But in the middle of his thoughts, someone confronts him. A warrior grabs Yihan, demanding an apology for bumping into him, refusing to let him go. John just thinks he has no time for these low-level bullies. He has way more important things to do. Infuriated by this dismissal, the bully tries to throw a punch at John. But before John can even react, someone else intervenes. A man tells the bully, "You can't just go around punching people." The bully fires back, asking, "Are you his friend?" The man says no, but John feels a strange sense of familiarity. He suddenly realizes he knows this man from his past life. With muscles bulging and veins practically popping, dressed in some seriously odd gear, it can only be Shev the Slayer, a legendary warrior from John's past life. Still, John has no idea what someone like Shev is doing all the way out here. Regardless, the bully gets furious at the interference and tells Shev to stay out of his business. He claims that Yihan provoked him and therefore deserves to be punished, an eye for an eye, right? Hearing this, Shev unleashes a sinister aura, making the bully cower like a scared dog. Shev states that the bully actually hit his palm when he threw that punch. And following the aggressor's own twisted logic, he should be punished for it. The bully's friend warns him about the danger of facing Shev the Slayer. He knows Shev is the leader of the Red Bulls, one of the top 30 guilds, and is notoriously thirsty for a good fight. The bully wonders what's a monster like that doing here. But as he turns to run, Shev the Slayer asks if the bully still wants to continue the fight. Immediately, the bully bolts, apologizing like his life depends on it. A smile graces his lips as Shev says he's happy everything ended peacefully. After that, Shev turned to our protagonist, assuring him that John wouldn't have any more trouble with those guys. But John just turned his back on Shev, coldly stating he didn't need his help, leaving Shev utterly stunned. And you and I just witnessed how cold our main character can truly be. The killer is left speechless by his sheer coldness. I mean, he was expecting at least a thank you. Walking away, Jae-han admits that for a second there, he was totally overwhelmed by Shev's raw power. But he makes a vow. Next time they meet, it won't end the same way. Later, deep inside a dungeon, our guy is thinking over the huge power gap between him and Shev. What's worse? Sil and Shev are on the same tier, meaning Jae-han needs to get just as strong for any hope of revenge. Lost in thought, he's suddenly ambushed by a monster, but his loyal skeleton warrior immediately jumps in. See, our main character was using himself as bait the whole time, just so his skeleton could handle the fight. The monster falls, and his ally gets a level up. But Jae-han grumbles that it took 3 whole days for his skeleton to hit level 10, way too slow. Still, our protagonist has evolved too. He now has the watch, a super important device that's packed with features. Attributes, quests, a map, inventory, and messages. He had the same exact watch in his past life and was waiting for this moment. But he's bummed to see all his old stats got wiped. Whatever, Jae-han now has to distribute his new stat points, knowing this decision is absolutely critical. He thinks about the most obvious path for a necromancer, boosting intelligence or magic. But here's where you and I see the real plan. He dumps every single point into strength, and just like that, his power surges dramatically. He can feel the massive difference, and he's not the only one. His skeleton ally feels it too. Noticing it looks uncomfortable, Jae-han reassures it. Hey, don't worry, I haven't given up on being a necromancer. I'm just doing this to train you better. His logic is that boosting intelligence or magic right now wouldn't change much. But by investing in raw strength, he can personally demonstrate every single attack that he himself had mastered in his past life. Let's be clear, he's literally staking his life on this strategy. He warns his skeleton that it better take this training seriously from now on. Plus, he says there are other ways to make up for his stats. Sometime later, at the Figgis Castle branch of the Monster Hunting Association, a guy announces new missions have dropped. Instantly, a brawl breaks out. All the adventurers are fighting for the quests, since missions are still a rare thing at this point. In the middle of the chaos, he calmly asks, "Can I see the list?" The host agrees, but warns him only leftovers are available. The missions no one wanted, the hard ones or the ones with trash rewards. Jae-han quickly sees that on top of that, most of the missions are incredibly dull. But hey, options are limited. As he scans the tasks, one of them finally catches his eye, a mission called Mount Bema Cave. The job is basically just clearing out some low-level monsters. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're really taking a mission with a reward that pathetic. Jae-han just confirms it. He's figured out that despite the pathetic reward, if he clears this mission before hitting level 15, he'll get an ultra-rare title. A title that normally just boosts your base stats, but the Ascending Star title increases them by a percentage. Trust me, this is the first step you and I are watching him take to becoming a character with unrivaled power. With that, it's time to get some new gear. Time to put his new gear to the test. Sometime later, John finally arrives at Mount Bima. But his new equipment, it's a complete fashion disaster, and you and I both know John feels it too. He spent so much on his allies' gear that there was barely anything left for himself. And now he's stuck in this hideous outfit, but whatever he's thinking. All he needs to do is clear this one mission, and he can finally afford some decent clothes. So he takes off, ready to get this done as fast as humanly possible. Meanwhile, in the same area, another player is down, desperately begging for help, but no one is listening. This poor guy had just walked straight into a trap, and the ambushers were lurking close by, patiently waiting for their next victim. On that very same mountain, an adventurer named Multi had just arrived. Multi was practically vibrating with excitement, totally convinced he was a genius player. He figured he was so skilled, he might even become a top ranker in no time. Lost in his daydreams, Multi suddenly heard a desperate cry for help. Someone's friend was supposedly gravely injured. Now watch closely, this is a textbook trap. Multi approaches, and the adventurer explains they were ambushed out of the blue. Their healing potions are all gone, and he says he can't help his friend alone. Concerned, Multi immediately offers up his potions and agrees to help out. The adventurer thanks him, crying his eyes out, making a whole scene. But it's all an act, a distraction, the perfect cover for his partner to attack Multi from behind. And just like that, another player falls for their little scheme. The bandit adventurers start mocking Multi for being so naive, saying his items will be very useful. Outraged, Multi just can't understand why they would trick him like that. The bandit just sneers back, "Not our fault, you made falling into our trap way too easy." And with that, the bandit delivers the final blow, kicking Multi out of the game. Multi's watch, holding his inventory and all his precious loot, is left behind. The bandits cheer, celebrating their easy score. Turns out they're not just random players. They're the Ralph family, an infamous player-killer gang, already looking for their next target. Now let's jump back to our main character, because his skeleton ally is facing its own fight. The skeleton stands before a pair of menacing forest wolves. Then, John gives the command. Attack mode activated. Instead of defending, the skeleton just charges straight in. Swiftly and decisively taking down both of the wolves, John quickly realizes something. With that sword he bought, his skeleton could probably take down a whole pack by itself. Seeing this, Jun knew he'd made the right call by investing in his ally's gear. After all, a true gamer focuses on performance, not just looking cool. After the fight, the skeleton waits for its master's praise, but John's not about that. He just tells it they need to level up and fast, so it was time for the next battle. The skeleton obediently follows its master, heading deeper into the forest. But then mid-stride, an arrow slams into the skeleton, catching it completely off guard. Jun is just as stunned by the sudden attack, almost immediately after. Someone appears, apologizing over and over, and look who it is, the same gang from before. They claim they saw the skeleton from a distance and mistook it for a monster. The gang leader quickly steps up to say sorry for the whole incident. But Jian recognized them instantly. He knew they were looters, and here we go, this is where it all kicks off. He immediately puts his guard up around this shady group. Outwardly, though, Jun plays it cool. He acts natural, saying it's fine, but that he'll need a mana potion for his ally. The gang leader claims they don't have any potions, but offers to help Jun out instead. Level up, since the skeleton's mana would just recover automatically. The leader claims they feel guilty and want to make things right. And just then a few monsters show up. The gang leader smirks, perfect timing. He says his group will weaken the monsters, leaving John to just land the final hit. Yeah, that's a total lie. The entire group is absolutely sure they've found the perfect victim for their little scheme. First, the bandits get the monster's attention, then their mage casts an attack buff. And finally, they sick the monster on their target. They're certain John will panic and get wiped out, saving them from getting their hands dirty, but the exact opposite happens. John absolutely bodies the monster, all thanks to his ally. Cool as ever, John tells them, "I appreciate the help, keep it coming." This makes the bandit crew realize their target's level is way higher than they ever expected. Now pay attention, because their genius plan is to unleash even more monsters at the same time. While their target is busy, the bandits plan to attack from behind. But as they try to pull it off, John dodges the strike like he saw it coming a mile away. To the bandits' horror, he not only missed his attack, he got counterattacked instantly. With a single, devastating blow, the bandit was completely crushed. Right after, John commands his minion into an attack stance. The skeleton gets ready for a real fight. The two of them charge straight at the remaining looters. Seeing this, the bandits start to panic, suddenly trying to talk things out. But for John, there's nothing left to say. John and his ally mercilessly cut the bandits down without a second thought. After all, you and I know he's seen this type of player before. The kind that earns your trust just to stab you in the back and steal all your items. John thinks that while he might have fallen for these tricks in his past life, he's a different man now. The kind who trusts no one. He delivers the final blow, and what does he find? They already had 8 watches from other players they'd eliminated. But since these guys won't be needing them anymore, John decides to take everything for himself. A guy's gotta find some decent clothes, right? Meanwhile, John's ally is getting payback for that arrow he took earlier. John sees the skeleton's bloodlust, but decides to let him vent. A little later, John takes a moment to heal up his partner. This makes the skeleton even more excited than before. John notices his ally's pure joy, but tells him, you shouldn't get too attached to how you look. Appearances don't matter that much in this game. He claims what's truly important is having a beautiful soul. And of course, the protagonist's brand new clothes immediately prove what a hypocrite he is. John also notes the stolen watches are a perfect fit. Selling another player's watch makes your inventory drop random items, rare gear, enhanced cosmetics, and even battle weapons with bonus stats, skill books, and gold. For John, it's pretty much like hitting the lottery on someone else's dime. Trust me, he's leveling up way faster than planned, and he's about to start recording his gameplay. In the middle of all this, a memory from his past hits John. He remembers talking with his friend about starting a guild, and they thought about calling it the Mask Guild, named after an item they found. Looking at that same mask now, John. He knows just how much he's changed, and stick with me, he's never letting anyone take what's his. Ever again, Jahan knows this is only the start, and his skeleton is gonna be his one true ally on this new journey. Sometime later, our hero and his bony partner plunge into the Mount Bema cave dungeon. Jahan remembered this place. He knew it was a nest of blue werewolves. Dangerous, sure, but Jahan figured his current gear would make short work of them, so he pressed on with his skeleton companion. Hours pass, but Jahan finds no monsters at all. He knew the dungeon wasn't cleared, the system would have told him, so he just couldn't understand why the place was totally empty. Then in the dead silence, he spots something weird. Jahan moves in for a closer look. And just like that, he triggers a portal to an instant dungeon. He realizes immediately this was why no monsters had shown up. Instant dungeons are randomly generated inside other dungeons, and they only close when you clear them. They are way tougher than regular dungeons, but the loot is on another level, but there's a catch. Once you step inside, the only way out is to win or die. Now here's where we see his true resolve. The smart move was to leave immediately. Dying meant a 2-day penalty, a crushing setback. But Jahan was on a different path now, a new journey from his past life. He doesn't hesitate, he just had to survive until the end. Stepping right through the portal, Jahan finds himself in an arena. The pressure is insane. What kind of monster could possibly be waiting here? Then, his question was answered. A colossal werewolf materializes right in front of him, and not just any werewolf, a corrupted one. Its level unknown. Our protagonist has seen a lot, but even he was genuinely shocked. The fight erupts with a brutal strike from the werewolf. Jahan is sent flying from the sheer impact. His ally braces itself, knowing it could be next. But Jahan just laughs. I'm lucky, he says, and yeah, I know what you're thinking. A monster like this could only mean a main quest. He tells his ally, if we don't take this thing down, you won't get dinner tonight. And with that, Jae-han charges the beast. His ally gets ready to back its master up. The skeleton uses its sword as a springboard, launching Jae-han into a massive leap, putting him directly above the monster. He unleashes a demonic curse, pouring its dark power straight into his blade. Now Jae-han had the power he needed to strike the enemy and tear it to shreds. Not only did Jae-han land a devastating blow, he also cursed the monster, weakening it even more. He'd never actually used this before, so Jae-han was thrilled to have nailed it on the first try. The monster, however, was not happy at all. Enraged, it lunges at our protagonist, attacking from behind. Jae-han knew a boss wouldn't drop from a single hit, so he wasn't surprised to see the wolf get up. Now Jae-han decides to use something he had been saving. He activates his watch, pulling an item from his inventory. A moment later, our hero is enveloped in magical armor, fully equipped and ready to crush his foe. The Activate Slots feature was unique to Warlord. When used, the watch channels pure Warlord energy, boosting a player's stats and literally reshaping their body. The resulting form was always unpredictable, varying wildly between players. That's exactly why players called it Supreme Mode. With Supreme Mode active, Jae-han was ready to fight. The enemy glared furiously and lunged forward again, but as it tried to claw Jae-han, the wolf missed every single strike. Jae-han dodged them all, but what he notices next, trust me, it changes everything. Speed, he knew these attacks were lethal, so Jae-han dodged for his life. But he isn't just playing defense. Spotting an opening, he moves to strike. And not only that, his attacks are now even stronger thanks to his new form. Seeing how hard his blow landed, Jae-han declares, "This just makes the game fun." But the wolf recovers way faster than he expected, immediately lunging at him. Jae-han barely dodges, realizing the beast is still absolutely furious. But he just smirks at his foe. "You must have forgotten something important. I'm not fighting you alone." After all, his skeleton ally is ready and waiting. While the wolf was totally focused on Jae-han, the skeleton saw its chance. Jae-han signals his ally, "Time to show it what our training was for." The enemy is totally confused, having no idea what's about to hit it. Then, to the wolf's shock, Jae-han and his ally strike at the exact same time. They slam the wolf from two directions, slicing the monster apart with no chance to react. After taking down the monster, Jae-han praises himself for that high-level play. And not only that, he gets to reap the sweet rewards, satisfied with his victory. Because tougher dungeons always drop the best prizes. Among the items, Jae-han gets the Corrupted Tracker's necklace, a unique artifact. He notices it can't be sold and is way more powerful than normal gear. But amidst all this, Jae-han is stunned to find he also got 3 new titles. One of them was expected, Rising Star. The second, Hero Challenger, also made sense. But the third title, Corrupted Tracker, is the one that truly stops him in his tracks. Now this is the part you and I need to watch closely. Jae-han knows this is the starter title for the main quest, Corrupted Count. The main quest is the absolute backbone of the Warlord world. It has insane rewards, so every single player wants a piece of the action. But even in his past life, Jae-han never got past Chapter 4. This time, though, the quest unlocked for him way earlier than he expected. Sometime later, back outside the game, Jae-han spots some news online. The Hydra Guild has officially entered the final phase of the Corrupted Count. Their guild leader even promises to complete the entire quest within 3 months. Seeing this, Jae-han realizes it might be too late for him. I mean, they're already at the end, and he's just getting started. He thinks maybe he should just sit this one out and focus on the next big chapter. Or maybe, just maybe, this is the perfect opportunity for him. Right now, the entire world is watching as Warlord's first main quest is about to end. Jae-han figures if he posts a video about the Corrupted Count right now, it could go viral. He thanks his lucky stars for recording everything and decides to post it fast. But Jae-han knows a great video is all about the editing. So he can only trust this job with one person, a legendary editor from his past. Trust me, you're going to want to remember this name, the filmmaker, Romani. Since they haven't met in this timeline yet, Romani gets a random editing request. She wonders what a level 15 player could possibly have that's worth her time. But the second she opens the message, Romani is absolutely shocked. She has stumbled upon something genuinely astonishing, a true diamond in the rough. A little later, a sharp-looking businesswoman summons an employee for a big announcement. Let me introduce you to the woman who's about to turn our hero's world upside down. What caught her attention was the video of a level 15 player single-handedly taking down a corrupted werewolf. Her employee dismisses it, claiming his team already reviewed the footage and found nothing. But unlike everyone else, the director is completely hooked. She tells her employee to find this player and bring him in. This is Seolian Chae, heir to the Thunder Corporation, South Korea's largest conglomerate and John's arch-nemesis from his past life. In Warlord, she's known as Sil, the Thunder Queen. Meanwhile, John nearly jumps out of his skin when he glances at his phone. The video he posted just yesterday has already exploded with an insane number of views. John remembers how tough it was to get any attention in his past life. But now things are moving at lightning speed. Even his friendship with Romani has changed. She's far more talkative now, a complete 180 from her reserved personality in his past. The old Romani never reached out first. But ever since she edited his video, she's been showing a whole lot of interest in John. So much so that she's become kind of annoying. Jae-han is seriously considering blocking her. All Romani wants to know is when Jae-han is dropping his next video. But he has no idea what to do. Finding another monster like the corrupted werewolf isn't exactly a walk in the park. So he logs into the game, hoping to find some inspiration. Elsewhere, a guy named Shev is glued to our main character's video. No matter how many times he rewatches it, Hurkan's movements impress him every single time. And pay attention here, because Shev has this feeling he's seen this player somewhere before, but he just can't place him. While he's lost in thought, Yell from the Red Bulls Guild asks who he's rambling on about. Shev tells her it's Hurkan, the hottest player on the server right now. His friend jokes that he's watched the video so many times he's going crazy. But Shev insists he can't look away. Watching this guy fight is just too thrilling. He even daydreams about what it would be like to duel Hurkan. But Yell cuts him off, telling him to get his head out of the clouds because she has a live stream to get ready for. Shev tries to flirt, telling her how much he likes her. Yell, however, just tells him to hurry up. Over 200,000 people are waiting for the stream to start, and they're all there to see him. After all, you and I are looking at Shev the Slayer, leader of the Red Bulls and the 9th-ranked player in all of Warlord. A dungeon portal rips open, and Shev and his crew stand ready. Then he gives the command for his guild members to prepare for the battle ahead. Back with John, he went to the Mission Association, but found nothing. He kind of expected it, but was still holding out for a half-decent quest. With zero options, his video plans had to be put on hold. Right as he's leaving, the receptionist recognizes him as the adventurer from the Bama Mountain Cave. The man named Houghton asks if John has a second to talk. A moment later, Houghton reveals he knows Hurkan ran into a mutant inside the cave. Our hero plays it cool, saying he only found a werewolf with strange eyes. But Houghton insists that's exactly what he meant, explaining there was a very high chance the monster had been exposed to the corrupted power. And trust me, Houghton doesn't know who they are, but he knows that any monster they touch. Its power drove people mad, and many had fallen victim to its corruption. Because of this, the association put a bounty on its head, and you and I both know Jae-hun. He immediately volunteered. Hone tried to stop him, saying it was too dangerous and far too soon. But our protagonist insisted. Fine, Houghton decided to give Hurkan his chance. He was instructed to find a man named Ahimri in Bangsu Castle, a place to the east of Figus Castle. He even promised to write him a letter of recommendation. A letter that would get Ahimri to teach Hurkan everything he needed to know. The moment he got that letter in his hands, our protagonist was ecstatic. This was exactly what he wanted, a unique quest, becoming a student to a master. That would make for an absolutely legendary video. Ahimri was one of Grandmaster Bakhin's 7 disciples. A living legend every mage desperately wanted to meet, known for handing out rare skill books. In other words, Ahimri was a ridiculously important, top-tier NPC. Jae-hun thought he wouldn't have to worry about content for his next video anymore. But then he remembered something crucial he needed to do first. Now pay attention, this part is important. So Jae-hun headed into a forest and summoned his loyal skeleton ally. He suddenly recalled that he hadn't properly checked the rewards from his last battle. He decided to use the werewolf skull he defeated to strengthen his skeleton warrior. With a huge surge of power, the skeleton completely absorbed the skull's attributes. It grew significantly stronger in an instant. Next, our protagonist equipped the corrupted tracker necklace. Its powerful effects immediately activated and applied to him. With that done, Jae-hun had completed all the preparations for his brand new mission. But before continuing his adventure, he tossed 2 more skeleton skulls onto the ground. And through them, he summoned 2 brand new allies. His first skeleton seemed shocked. It was a sudden army expansion, but Jae-hun declared that from now on, the 3 of them would fight as one. A single deadly unit, and he couldn't wait to see his new allies in action. A short time later, Jae-hun runs into a massive forest bear. The beast immediately attacks him without a second thought, but Jae-hun dodges the initial strike. The bear lashes out again. Jae-hun waits for the perfect moment to counter. He orders one of his allies to draw the monster's aggro, its attention. Instantly, the skeleton warrior charges straight toward the enemy. However, the bear proves much smarter than it looks, grabbing it and flinging it away. Jae-hun declares that such a simple attack would never work. His ally has to hit the enemy's blind spot. So he orders another one of his skeletons to carry out the task. The skeleton approaches the bear and attempts to attack, but just like the first one, it gets completely shut down. Jae-hun rages, watching his allies completely fail to follow his simple orders. He screams this skeleton did the exact same thing as the last one, and yeah, we're all thinking the same thing he is. Amidst the chaos, his very first skeleton warrior steps forward. Jae-hun's hopes surge. He believes this one, his veteran, will finally get the job done right. So his ally charges the bear, attempting to land a strike with its sword, but just like the others, it too is easily defeated. At this point, Jae-hun is practically tearing his hair out in absolute frustration. A little later, Jae-hun gathers his entire squad and declares, "You guys don't have brains. You're just reanimated skeletons, after all." He then tries to explain the simple strategy. He says that normally when attacked, a monster will turn toward that incoming strike. That's why Jae-hun pleads, you have to attack where the monster can't see, not just hit it head-on. But he quickly realizes his explanation is falling on deaf ears, and you and I both know it's a completely lost cause. Let's dive in. Our guy is getting more and more furious with his so-called allies. Sure, summoning 3 skeletons at once sounds cool, but they have 0 teamwork. All they can do is perfectly mirror each other's moves, one for one. And since they can't fight as a team, they sure as hell can't act like one. Plus, summoning them costs a crippling triple the mana. So even though he hit level 20 like he wanted, video production is on hold. Instead, Jae-hun has to train these skeletons for the Bangu Castle mission. Jae-hun dreamed of having 3 allies so he could just kick back and watch. But reality, not even close. On top of that, he won't be able to avoid the front lines like he hoped, because all the hard work still falls on him. Meanwhile, over at the Bangsu Castle Association branch, players are waiting. They're just lurking until one guy walks into the main hall. And instantly, everyone swarms him like sharks. They demand to know his mission. Pay attention here, because you see the dark side of this world. Jae-hun watches, comparing them to hyenas fighting over a scrap of meat. He knows this type of person is everywhere. They don't even try to succeed. They just latch on to others like parasites. Someone tries to greet Jae-hun. He ignores them completely. Jae-hun decides his mission is top secret. So he walks straight to the person in charge and hands over his letter. The official confirms the recommendation and gives him the all-clear to proceed. Others try to get friendly, hoping to piggyback on his quest, but he shuts them down hard. As he heads in, his mind is racing, wondering what epic rewards are waiting for him. But his main objective is to build a connection with the wizard Ahimri from the start. But when he finally gets to the wizard's room, it's utter chaos, an absolute disaster zone. Seeing him, Ahimri just declares he has no appointments scheduled for today. Then he straight up asks the adventurer who he is, so Jae-hun introduces himself. He says he is Hyekin, here with a letter of recommendation. Ahimri takes note. Hyekin is just a rookie, but he must have some serious skills to earn this. Regardless, Ahimri just casually hands over the rewards for the letter. And Jae-hun is ecstatic, 2 incredibly rare skill books, total score. But then, to his shock, Ahimri says their business is over and wishes him a safe trip. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. It can't end that fast. He was expecting a new quest, not to be kicked out. He didn't come all this way just for the books. Desperate, Jae-hun blurts out that he'll do anything to be his apprentice. He's practically begging on his knees for a chance. Hearing this, the wizard raises an eyebrow. He asks if Hyekin is serious, because if he is, the wizard does have a little task for him. The job: retrieve an egg directly from its nest, but here's the insane part. The quest has 0 reward, leaving him stunned, confused, and a little terrified. At that exact moment, another player approaches, decked out in incredibly expensive gear. He immediately grabs everyone's attention. He walks in and declares, "So, this is where Haho Mask is, huh?" Jae-hun curses his luck, stuck with such a pathetic quest. He was hoping for some grand adventure, not a worthless egg-gathering chore. He's just standing there wondering if this mission is even worth his time. Until someone comes up and asks him about it. The second they hear he got a quest, "You and I are about to see this happen all over again." A hungry mob swarms him. About these vultures, and now he's trapped with absolutely no way out. The crowd surges in, but through the chaos, a figure emerges, demanding a clear path. It's that mysterious warrior from before, and he pushes straight through to Jian. The warrior asks if Jian has a moment, saying he needs to speak privately. Jian's just annoyed. Who even is this guy? He is not interested in talking. So he rejects the offer, but the warrior calls him Mr. Haho Mask and asks for his cooperation. Away from the crowd, the two finally stop to talk. The warrior apologizes for his blunt approach, explaining he urgently needed to speak. He just couldn't risk talking with so many other people around. From the warrior's gear, Jian knows he's a ranker, but he doesn't recognize his face. More importantly, how does this guy even know his name? Jian decides to play it cool, asking why he was called Haho Mask. The warrior reveals he knows exactly who Jian is and that he just got a quest. From the wizard, "Now pay attention." Jian cuts straight to the chase. "Who are you? And what do you want?" He also makes it clear he's not looking for a fight. The mysterious figure just stares at Jian, then says he made a mistake and apologizes. Jian keeps up his clueless act and accepts the apology before walking away. He says he'll just put this whole misunderstanding behind him for now. After Jian leaves, another player shows up, and the warrior says they might have the wrong person. Only a complete amateur would leave his watch. Exposed so carelessly, his partner comments that the corrupted count's quest is almost over, suggesting they can stop watching the NPC wizard. But the warrior insists the nest egg quest is the main mission. They can't afford to make a single mistake at this critical stage. After that, they each return to their post, but from a distance, Jian saw it all. He noticed the warrior who came up to him definitely wasn't alone. Jian figures the two must be part of some guild, but instead of offering a deal, Like normal players do, they took a completely different approach. And I know what you're thinking. This means they aren't from some common guild. What really bothers him, though, is not knowing who these players are. One thing is certain, the egg quest is way more than a simple collection task. These guys probably saw his video and used it to track him down. But since they let him go so easily, they don't care about Haho Mask, just the quest. Jian doesn't know much about it, but he knows he has to avoid drawing attention. He's just fed up with more and more lunatics showing up to ruin his day. I mean, dealing with his past enemies like Chiyulian was already enough trouble. And speaking of her, trust me, things are about to get even messier over there. Chiyulian's secretary, Park Suji, appears with a bottle of water and asks about the guild exam. Chiyulian just scoffs, a waste of my time, all the candidates were incompetent. She then demands an immediate update on Haho Mask from her secretary. Park Suji says he hasn't responded to their messages, so he probably already joined another guild. Furious, Chiyulian demands to know if she's sure. Park Suji admits she isn't, so her boss orders her to investigate further. Don't come back until you have a solid answer. Before she leaves, Chiyulian asks what the chairman said. The secretary reports that the chairman. Still no response. Solonian took the chairman's silence as a good sign. It meant Warlord was performing beyond expectations. She recalled how the chairman tried to set her up in a forced marriage when she first mentioned joining Warlord. Anyway, Xiaolin ordered Park Suji to find a fresh batch of candidates and wanted a full report on her desk by tomorrow. Park Suji argued the deadline was insane. But her boss wasn't hearing it and just walked off, leaving her talking to thin air. Now let's get back to our main character, Jihen. It's been a minute since he was last in the lizard swamp. He figured the mission objective couldn't be too far from the wizard's castle. Since he needed to collect an egg, it obviously belonged to a monster in this exact swamp. But the monsters here are high level, so Jihen decides to use that new skill enhancement he picked up. First, he has to draw a specific mark and then chant the right spell. With that done, he activates the Helm of Madness on his skeleton. Instantly, the effects start to show on his undead ally. Jihen is genuinely surprised, so how do you test a new power-up? You order it to attack you, of course. Now watch this, he forgot about the side effects. There was a chance his ally could just completely lose its mind. Ordered to attack its own master, the skeleton lunges without a second's thought. And Jihen realizes something is very, very wrong here. He moves to stop the attack, striking his own skeleton to cancel the command. That prevents a disaster. He scolds the skeleton, "Don't you ever scream at your master." Jihen wonders if this whole thing is just some kind of in-game bug, trying to process what happened. But the commotion attracts some locals, lizardmen. And they are not happy about intruders. Seeing them, Jihen just smirks. Looks like my test subjects have arrived. He activates the Helm of Madness again, this time casting bone armor as well. His 3 skeleton allies power up, growing even stronger. The lizards brace for a fight, and Jihen gives the order. Attack! An absolute brawl erupts instantly. It doesn't take long at all for the skeletons to get the upper hand, completely overwhelming the lizards. Soon every last enemy is taken down. Jihen is thrilled. Finally, a good result. Now this is what he was talking about. He can finally hunt for real while searching for that egg. No need to rush the main quest anymore. After all, Jihen is here to grind and get as strong as possible. But as he's celebrating with his crew, someone's watching. Let me introduce you to Ilya. And to say she's convinced of her own beauty is an understatement. Because of it, her life has been ridiculously easy. The moment she pretends to be in trouble, her personal slaves appear to help her out. But while walking through the swamp, Ilya slips and faceplants into a puddle. Furious, she screams, "I hate this place." She's only here because one of her slaves brought her to power level. But then he died, leaving the girl completely helpless and totally clueless. The monsters around here, way too strong for her. At least on her own, Then she spots Jihan fighting and thinks he's perfect. Perfect to be her next slave, that is. She gets up and walks over to Jihan, begging for his help. I hurt my leg because of the monsters, she whines. And now I can't walk. You and I can see right through this act, but will he? All right, let's see if our guy Jun falls for the oldest trick in the book. But defying all her expectations, Jun just turns his back on her. He walks away, leaving her speechless and alone. Ilya is utterly floored. She is not used to being rejected. She begs for help, but Jun could not care less. And at this point, Ilya is absolutely seething. Meanwhile, Jun goes back to fighting lizards, but he can barely focus. He knows she's still following him. He'd been ignoring her because he didn't want to waste time, but this girl just keeps tailing him. To Jun, if you enter Warlord, you should at least know the basics. So to finally put an end to this distraction, Jun decides to face it. What do you want? He asks. Ilya claims she lost her sword in the swamp and needs help getting it back. Jun lays down the terms. I get your sword, you stop following me. She quickly agrees and thanks him for his help, but inside her head, a smug smirk. Her new slave was finally falling for her charms. Sometime later, they finally find the sword deep in the swamp. Jun confirms he'll get it, but only if she keeps her end of the deal and leaves him alone. He then orders his skeletons to retrieve the blade. With that, the three plunge deeper, heading straight for the weapon. Seeing this, Ilya celebrates internally. Her plan is working perfectly. She figures necromancers are nothing without their summons. Once the skeletons are gone, their master is completely vulnerable. For daring to ignore her. Ilya lunges, pay attention, hears the backstab, but Jun dodges it easily, scoffing that she's way too slow. In one fluid motion, he grabs Ilya and hurls her away. She goes crashing into a stream deep in the swamp. Instantly, she starts screaming at Jun, swearing he won't get away with this, that her bodyguards will hunt him down. But Jun just tells her to shut up and look behind her. Something's coming. At first, Ilya doesn't believe him, but then she sees it. She landed right in the middle of a mutant lizard den. As she scrambles to escape, Jun coldly states she should have thought twice before trying to play him. You and I both know Jun saw through her act from the very beginning. He thinks to himself he's been tricked way too many times to not spot a liar. Besides, this whole thing was just a massive waste of his time. Glancing at his skeletons, Jun sees them acting weird and gives them a lecture, telling them to learn useful skills instead of these bizarre new habits. Moments later, a system alert pops up. Player Ilya has died. He'd received points for her elimination, which is a surprise since he just threw her to the monsters. Not only that, but Jun figures the girl must have been bluffing about her bodyguards. However, Ilya's fanboys watching her live stream saw the whole thing and are not happy with Jun's actions. It doesn't take long for the swamp to get chaotic. One of Ilya's fans appears, ready to confront Jun but his revenge attempt. It fails spectacularly. Jun just stares at the kid, seriously asking why he's going this far for a girl who gives him nothing. Jun points out that Ilya won't even thank him, let alone give him the time of day. So what do we learn here? The kid really shouldn't get so attached to a girl like that. But he just laughs it off, screaming, I love Ilya, I'd do anything for her. And let me tell you, that's the kind of loyalty that gets you killed. Jihan, fed up, ends him for good. He remembers Ilya trying to con him earlier, realizing she probably pulls these kinds of stunts all the time. So no, Jihan doesn't feel bad about Ilya, not one bit. He just never thought Ilya was actually serious about her bodyguards. And now, more fanatics like this are bound to come looking for a fight. Ilya, meanwhile, has her own special way of charming her little flock. She can talk them into anything. Which is why lately, psychos keep showing up to challenge Jihan. He was already spoiling for a fight, since he couldn't find any decent missions. And now, as if on cue, more cannon fodder appears. Jihan would actually love to hunt down that player and take her out again, just for the fun of it. But he's short on time and needs to avoid drawing any more unwanted attention to himself. Still, Jihan takes the chance to loot the players he dropped along the way, and realizes the last guy had some seriously high-end gear on him. Jihan's almost grateful that rookies like these are throwing themselves at him. Thanks to them, he's about to make a nice little profit selling off their items. Just then, another one of Ilya's fanboys steps up to challenge him. This time, Jihan openly admits he's the one who offed Ilya. But he quickly realizes a much larger group has shown up, and here's the part you need to watch. In a situation like this, Jihan knows better than to fight. He runs. There are so many players, he can't even get a proper count. It's just wild that so many of her sheep are willing to die for Ilya. So instead of just bailing, Jihan decides to unleash his personal army of skeletons. But apparently, this crew already knows all about his abilities and came prepared to counter his undead minions. Jihan can tell this group is on a whole other level. He's not gonna win this with his current squad. With that, Jihan decides to make a clean getaway, vowing to find them again once he's strong enough. After a hard sprint through the swamp, Jihan finally stops for a breather. He thinks it was tough shaking off that many pursuers, but he knows he can't let his guard down yet. By now, though, Jihan has no clue where he is. This area looks completely different from the rest of the swamp. He doesn't remember a place like this, but he starts piecing things together. Nearby, Ilya's followers are still searching for Jihan until they spot his skeletons, just dancing around in the mud. The players have no idea what's going on. Still, they take it as a personal insult, thinking they're being totally mocked. So one of them charges straight for the skeletons, only to run face first into a giant monster. The player doesn't know where it came from and is terrified. But he's powerless as he gets snatched up by the creature. The other players who saw the whole thing are panicking. They just realized this monster is a dragon lizard, the absolute boss of this swamp. And while they stare, frozen in fear, Jihan is hiding nearby, watching the whole show go down. He'd already figured it out. This had to be a lizard's nest. A dragon lizard is a boss with insane defense, health, and attack power. On average, you need a raid party of 20 to 40 players just to take it down. But Jihan heard that the dragon lizard raid in this area had already been cleared. So this monster shouldn't even be here, but you and I know that if someone has a related quest, the monster comes back. Can reappear. It means if the dragon lizard is back, this must be the exact spot for the quest Jae-hun received from the wizard Ahimri. His mission is clear. Defeat the creature and deliver its egg to the wizard. He just can't understand why he got such a high-level quest so early in the game, and trust me, he's furious. Livid at the wizard for handing him a quest he is clearly not leveled enough to handle. But luckily, Ilya's crew is already fighting the beast, and who knows? They might just prove to be a useful distraction. Just then, one of the players shouts for a retreat, claiming the monster is way too powerful for their entire group. But Jae-hun steps in, summoning one of his powered-up skeletons to block the players' escape route. With their path blocked, the players have only one choice. Keep fighting the monster until they can break through. But the dragon lizard isn't about to make it easy. Now watch this. Jae-hun seizes the opportunity. He makes his escape, silently thanking the pawns for the perfect distraction. Jae-hun has zero interest in fighting the monster right now. After all, his only goal is getting that egg, so he pushes deeper into the nest. He reaches the lizard's nest, only to be shocked when he finds no egg there. Desperate, he frantically searches every corner until he spots something suspicious. On closer inspection, Jae-hun realizes it looks more like a strange rock than an egg. Suddenly, his system pings an alert. His skeleton has been defeated. This can only mean the dragon lizard is heading back, and Jae-hun's time is up. Enraged, the monster storms back into its nest, searching for its precious item. Jae-hun scrambles to hide any way he can. With the dragon lizard back, he can't risk searching the nest any further. He has no choice but to retreat with the only thing he managed to grab, hoping it's what the wizard is after. Meanwhile, the group of players has been completely wiped out. Jae-hun approaches, finding nothing but their shattered gear. He thinks to himself that this game is truly fascinating, with so many absolute lunatics running wild thanks to the game's boundless freedom. He scoops up the loot dropped by the defeated players, then declares he's about to make something crystal clear. "You and I both know what's coming next," he states. He's been going easy until now. But unlike his opponents, he takes this game deadly seriously. He warns that the next time someone decides to cross him, he won't be so forgiving. This warning goes out to that woman's followers and anyone else for that matter. With his message delivered, Jae-hun departs. Once he's a safe distance away, he vows to himself that if any of those players dare come after him after that warning, he will unleash total war on every single one of them. To cool off, he decides to hunt. He could use the extra cash, especially after finding some interesting items in the swamp. Sometime later, Jae-hun brings the dragon lizard's item to the wizard Ahimri. He tells the wizard it wasn't easy to get, and he sincerely hopes Ahimri accepts it because he has zero intention of ever returning to that map. Ahimri inspects the item, confirming it is precisely what he was looking for. Jae-hun cheers, having delivered the correct item. The mage even praises him, admitting he was shockingly fast, far exceeding his expectations. Jae-hun simply says he gave it his all, but now he wants to know, is there a next mission? And that's where things get wild. Ahimri asks if he knows what that mysterious item truly is. The mage explains that his group stumbled upon this thing while investigating the mutant monster zone, dubbing it the Stone of Corruption. For John, this single reveal makes everything click into place. So that's why those shadowy players were hunting him. Trust me, an item this important is definitely tied to the main quest. They were desperate to make sure no one else got their hands on it because it would completely derail their own progress. John originally thought he'd been tricked into this mission, but now his opinion has done a complete 180. Majimri admits he knew the quest was dangerous, but he had to test the resolve of anyone he'd take as a student. Now that John has proven himself, Ahimri asks, "Are you ready to fight corruption?" John sees this as a golden opportunity. He's not even considering saying no. But Mage Ahimri shuts him down. "John, you're not ready yet. Missions like these aren't for rookies." In that instant, John realizes his level is still far too low. Still, Ahimri says he's willing to accept him as a disciple. If Herkin, Jae-hun's in-game name, simply asks him politely. A short time later, Jae-hun storms out of the mage's room, completely furious. He hated the NPC's condescending tone and suspects Ahimri is just a scam artist. Now let's jump scene. Some time passes, and that same dragon lizard is finally defeated. A seriously strong party of high-level players teamed up to put an end to the threat. The guild captain gathers with the others, trying to catch his breath. He walks over to an allied player and says, "You're stronger than I expected, partner." The captain then thanks his helper for the game-changing assist during the fight. And wait a second, this helper is the same guy who tried to kill John, now in a clever disguise. The guild captain has no idea. "Without you, we wouldn't have one," he says, thanking him for taking the job in exchange for payment. The captain offers the helper a handful of gold, but the guy actually refuses. He claims it wasn't the promised reward and that he doesn't like breaking the game's rules. The captain is floored. Helpers always take the cash, but this one was different. Not to mention, why was a high-level ranker grinding a mission so far below his pay grade? This only made the captain even more curious about who he was. The captain tells the helper he can keep whatever he finds in the creature's nest. Just like they promised, though he warns him there's probably nothing left. But this player only cares about one thing, finding that corruption stone. It's the whole reason he took the quest in the first place. The helper heard the lizard dragon had respawned and feared Hi-Ho Mask would kill it first. He wanted to get a step ahead. Since that hadn't happened, he figured the stone must still be sitting in the nest. This player knew taking down a boss wasn't easy. But he was more than capable, positive his reward was waiting for him. But when he gets to the nest, he finds nothing. The helper is enraged. Someone got there first. So while he's fuming, what's our boy John up to? Well, you and I are about to see him turn his life around. Throughout his journey, John always said that after his revenge, he just wanted to enjoy some quality food. Well, that time is now. He was dead set on having a real, decent meal. Jae-hun had been saving every penny as a precaution, but now that he'd secured the main quest, he figured his financial problems were finally over. Jae-hun had also read that. Ton of loot from other players, so you'd think he'd at least get a decent payday after a mission like that. Checking his bank account, Jae-hun dreamed of a juicy steak, but after paying his debts, he was left with less than $1. That's not even enough for ramen. Jae-hun couldn't believe he was still broke after all that work. Just as he was about to give up, a message pops up from Royne, asking if he was ever going to post another video. He realized he hadn't spoken to his editor in ages and completely forgot to tell her what happened. After all, Jae-hun couldn't record while he was trying to stay off the radar, with powerful enemies watching his every move. But then he reconsiders. Jae-hun decides it's ridiculous to starve just because of some weirdos. He was done caring about what they thought. So he figured it's better to do what he needs to do instead of hiding away. With that, Jae-hun logs back into the game, ready to take on the challenge of a map called the Forest of the Dead. Arriving on the map, Jae-hun notes that no matter how many times he comes here, it always gives him the creeps. Still, this is the single best place for power leveling, and its creepy vibe is perfect for pulling in viewers for his next video. Alright, now watch this. Jae-hun tells his allies it's hunting time and introduces a new skeleton. He explains that magic is officially part of his new strategy, so everyone had better get used to it. One of the skills he copied from Himri was the ability to summon skeleton mages. The higher Jae-hun's level, the stronger his summons will become. Jae-hun knows this skill is awesome, but the skeleton mage has one major drawback: it drains a ton of mana. Anyway, he gears up. He points out their targets, enemy skeletons. But unlike his own troops, these guys are on a whole different level of strength, so Jae-hun needs his team to work together. But seeing them hesitate, Jae-hun orders them to stop standing around and get into the fight. He explains that undead monsters are built different from normal ones, so there's no reason to be scared. His words, however, don't seem to work. Jae-hun snaps that they have no time to waste. The fight needs to start now. Just then, one of Jae-hun's skeletons charges forward, landing a solid hit on an enemy, but the enemy skeleton barely even flinches. Jae-hun points and says, "See, this is exactly what I meant. Normal attacks won't do a thing, so guys, you have to change up your tactics." Jae-hun then pulls a huge hammer from his inventory and shatters a few enemy skeletons just to show them how it's done. After the demonstration, Jae-hun instructs his troops, you have to crush their heads. But Jae-hun's skeletons are still completely terrified. So he warns them their goal is to wipe out 100 enemy skeletons in 100 minutes. That's one skeleton per minute. And I know what you're thinking. He follows it up with a classic threat: if you fail, I'll abandon you. Pure fear finally gets them moving. His skeletons immediately leap into action. After all, nobody wants to get left behind. A little while later, the team is getting solid results, and Jae-hun looks pretty pleased. He thinks to himself that his skeletons got the hang of the hammers way faster than he thought. This means his next video is going to be huge. Just then, Jae-hun is blindsided by a giant skeleton that appears out of nowhere. It's a skeleton warrior, an incredibly rare monster with a random spawn rate. But Jae-hun only sees one thing: rewards, and more than that, he's still thinking about that steak. So Jae-hun charges in with his team, and yeah, we all know what happens when an MC gets distracted. Whoa, a surprise attack nearly takes his head off. John barely manages to dodge, realizing he was a split second from being crushed. Good thing he damaged its arm earlier. Now all John has to do is shatter the rest of the skeleton. With that, he executes a coordinated strike with his team. Then yells, "Is everyone all right?" The enemy rises after the blow and tries to ambush John from behind, but John just smirks. "You're forgetting something, aren't you? One of my team members hasn't attacked yet," and right on cue, his skeleton mage starts casting. A massive fireball materializes and rockets towards the enemy, turning it to complete ash. Meanwhile, John's already thinking about the insane views this video is gonna rack up. And of course, the juicy steak dinner he's been dreaming of. But just then, his system screams an alert. The map boss has awakened, demanding vengeance for its fallen soldier. Now you and I need to watch this part closely. A portal rips open, and a monstrous creature bursts through. But instead of fear, John's eyes light up at the sight. He recognizes it. The Golden Skeleton, the boss of the Forest of the Dead. This is the first ever mage-class boss, a monster infamous for completely wiping out rookies. John never expected to face this thing so soon. He's not even sure he can actually win, but he knows if he pulls it off, the video will be legendary. He turns around to buff his allies. Only when he looks back, he realizes he's completely alone. His mana is gone. The power drain made all his summons vanish. Now John has to face the boss solo. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. This is bad. He realizes summoning all 4 allies, especially the mage, burned through his mana way too fast. Now he has no choice but to fight hand-to-hand after all this time. He activates his watch, summoning his armor, and just like that, he's ready for battle. Our main character doesn't back down easily, especially not when there's so much on the line, like that steak he's been craving. As John charges forward, the enemy prepares, unleashing a storm of magical attacks straight at him. John knows one single hit would be instant game over. This boss isn't called the Rookie Killer for nothing. Plus, he can't let the enemy keep spamming so much magic if he wants any chance to win. He decides he needs to shut down the casting itself. With that one goal, John launches an attack. But instead of hitting the enemy directly, he strikes the boss's magic circle. He's figured it out. The enemy's hands are directly linked to its spells. So if he can just shatter its hands, he can shut it down for good. The boss was not happy about that. Even his system blares a warning. Now the monster wants more than just revenge. There's pure bloodlust in its eyes now, determined to crush the one who dared to injure it. John is completely bewildered, wondering what just happened. But instead of answers, he's met with a relentless barrage of attacks from the enraged enemy. His only option is to try and run, but John realizes the attack is closing in way too fast. The strike slams into the ground. John loses his footing and tumbles hard. He's cornered with nowhere left to go. What's worse, he doesn't recognize this attack pattern at all. And this, right here, is the moment we both know he's in serious trouble. Does his memory fail him, or does the Golden Skeleton have hidden attacks? Either way, knowing the answer is the least of his problems. To make matters worse, his allies won't be back anytime soon. With no intel and no backup, John wonders how he'll ever survive. Defeat the boss. Gripped by doubt, his only option is to attack while he still can. Let's see how this plays out, as Jae-hyun charges the monster, hoping he can dodge. He knows the attack's trajectory, but he just can't find an opening to strike. Without a single blind spot, landing a hit on this thing is nearly impossible. He hesitates for a second, and that's all it takes. The boss gets him. He's captured, and not only that, this giant skull is about to devour him. Jae-hyun is in a seriously bad spot, but he still has one more trick. He unleashes a demonic curse on the monster, causing its stats to tank. Now watch this. The boss's attributes plummet by 13%, and it lets him go. This was the opening he was desperately waiting for. He seizes the chance. He even thanks the boss for making things so easy for him, and without a second wasted. He smashes the monster with his hammer. The boss is wide open and can't defend. A direct hit, and just like that, the protagonist brings down another boss. His system flashes a victory message, and better yet, a long-awaited level up. Jae-hyun breathes a sigh of relief. His risky strategy actually paid off. He checks his status window and sees he's hit level 36, but he knows it's dangerous to keep fighting like this. He just saw what happens when he runs out of mana. He can't let that happen again. So far, he's managed to scrape by, but he knows he can't rely on luck forever. He realizes he can't just invest in his allies, because when they're not around, they're useless to him. On the other hand, our guy knows he's already gained all the mana titles he possibly can, so he doesn't know where else he can improve from here. Plus, he's broke and can't afford to upgrade his equipment, leaving him with very limited options. For now, Jae-hyun sends the raw footage to his editor. He wants a killer video made, while he aims to hit level 40. Later, Romani gets the files and immediately starts working on the video. But watching it, she can't believe what Hurricane did in his last battle, calling him crazy for taking such huge risks. You and I both know it was insane, but it totally worked. Hurricane defeated a higher-level boss without taking a single hit. A feat many would consider completely impossible. At this point, Romani figures the raw footage is already so incredible, she barely needs to edit it. She decides to just send the final cut to him with the perfect title. The Solo Emperor. Sometime later, Jae-hyun returns to the Adventurers Association. Back in Bangu, he finds the mage, who claims to be even stronger now. The mage thinks Jae-hyun's appearance is a bit odd, curious about where he's been. Anyway, he hands over the promised reward for completing the quest. Jae-hyun receives a magic book. He quickly realizes this book is on osteology, an incredibly rare necromancer skill that's impossible to find. And what's more, the mage also shows him the corrupted tracker's ring. He explains that he used the stone Jae-hyun brought him to craft the item. With this ring, the user can wield corrupted power to their own advantage. Jae-hyun's eyes gleam, knowing just how important an item like this is. But as he reaches for it, the mage says he can't just hand it over yet. He states that his apprentice will have to earn it, Jae-hyun will have to take it. Of course, nothing's ever easy, is it? So Jae-hyun starts the chase to claim his prize. The one item he's been after. A bit later, Jae-hyun looks at the ring, wondering why that mage acted so strange. He thinks if the guy wasn't an important NPC, he'd have already taken him out. At least he scored a new quest. Earlier, the mage mentioned losing contact with an agent named Miggy and asked him to check out Suryu Castle. Even though he's fuming, he lets it slide for now. He knows Suryu Castle is a super high-level zone, so he decides to grind some levels on the way. Meanwhile, Romani hits him up, saying the latest video is live and he needs to see this. Jae-hyun checks it out, and trust me, you are not gonna believe these numbers. They are mind-blowing. And the earnings, they're skyrocketing right alongside them. Shocked, he stumbles back. He has never seen numbers this massive in his entire life, but one thing is certain. With this kind of money, he can finally eat whatever he wants. Jae-hyun expected a positive reaction, but this completely blew all expectations out of the water. He's so hyped he wants to log out and go feast right now. Everything else can wait, but then an unusual message pops up. The leader of the Thunder Hunter Guild sends him a recruitment offer. Now, this is a huge deal. And yeah, he knows exactly who this woman is. In his past life, Kyalan relentlessly hounded him to join her. Because he refused, she made his entire life a living hell, hunting him down with her entire guild. That's why he isn't even going to consider her offer. But as he stops to think, he realizes something. He's acting the exact same way he did in his past life. A flashback shows him getting furious over Kyalan's persistence. He couldn't get why she was so obsessed with recruiting him when he already had a guild. Back then, one of his allies told him he was lucky since the Thunder Hunter Guild was one of the best. Getting an offer from them meant you were considered an absolutely top-tier player. On top of that, the guild leader came from a rich family, and the people who worked for her earned insane salaries. His own guildmate told him he was truly talented, and their videos always brought in some good cash. Not just that, his partner even said he was too good to be in their small-time guild. But Jae-hun claimed he didn't care about wealth or fame. He believed his own guild had potential and would grow, and that the money would eventually follow. That's why he preferred to stay in his guild and build it up with his friends rather than join another. At the time, his partner couldn't change his mind. Back in the present, he realizes it. Let's be real, you and I can see the signs were all there. He just didn't notice them. Still, he knows he never deserved to be betrayed by his companions. But Jae-hun knows this is no time to dwell on what happened. He has to focus on his goal, and he can't just quit the game. After all, he'll have plenty of time to spend that money later on. It's way too early to be satisfied when he knows he can earn so much more, and with that, he summons his skeleton crew again. He tells them last time he did all the heavy lifting. So he is starting a new training regimen with them to boost the whole team's power. This is to make sure what happened before never happens again. Jae-hun remembers his old companions always slacking off during training. But his new skeletons, at least they actually follow his commands. With this, Jae-hun knows he has everything he needs to make things different this time around. Stick with me because Jae-hun knows that getting stronger is the only way to reach his goals. He tells his skeletons their next stop is Turyu Castle, and along the way, they're going to get a hell of a lot stronger. Jae-hun explains the training is simple. Run. Don't stop until you reach the goal, but if anyone falls behind, they get a beating until they start running again. With that kind of motivation, the whole squad starts running like their lives depend on it, because they do. Meanwhile, miles away, Chase is lost in thought when someone approaches, asking what she's so deeply focused on. This is Hatch, an associate from the Thunder Hunters Guild. Hatch informs his leader the meeting is about to start. He also reports that the guild has made zero progress on the corrupted count mission, and they still haven't found a single clue for the next one. Chase admits she feels humiliated that the Hydra Guild actually beat them to the punch on this. Hatch says the meeting is with the leaders of all 30 top guilds. You just know something big is about to go down. Keolian, however, scoffs at the idea, saying a meeting like that will be useless. But she'll be there anyway. With that, all Hatch can do is wish his guild leader good luck. Back to our main character. The massive success of his last video almost made him lose control with all that cash flowing in. But his hatred for Chai Seolin snapped him back to reality, and he decided to keep grinding instead of quitting. Arriving home, the first thing Jae-han did was pay off all his debts to the loan shark. He needed to get that problem out of his life once and for all. Next, Jae-hun bought rare skill books to get a bigger advantage in the game. But after spending every last cent he earned, Jae-hun was officially broke again, his bank account sitting at a perfect zero. Even though he only spent it on essentials, seeing his account completely empty was a painful sight for him. To shake off the feeling, Jae-hun got to work mastering his brand new skills. First up is a skill called Skin Graft, and trust me, you're gonna wanna see this defense boost in action. He immediately puts it to the test. He combines it with his Skeleton Warrior's Essence skill, and his defense goes through the roof. Jae-hun grabs a sword and tries to injure himself. When it doesn't even leave a scratch, he knows his defense is even stronger than he imagined. Next up, he tries out the Curse of Sloth. This little beauty seriously slows down its target. He casts it on a skeleton and instantly sees how useful this will be in a real fight. Finally, Jae-hun moves to his last new skill, Golem Summoning, the hardest one to get and the one he wanted most. With a massive surge of power, Jae-hun begins the summoning, leaving his undead allies completely stunned. Jae-hun himself was ecstatic. This was the moment. He had finally summoned a golem. Looking at his new creation, he declares, "A necromancer is nothing without his golem. This thing is more reliable than any tank I've ever had." On top of that, the golem had a copy mode. Activating it would let Jae-han perfectly sync his own movements with the golem's. He believed that mixing the golem's pure power with his own combat sense would make him unstoppable. But when he actually tried this new feature out, disappointment hit him hard. It didn't work like he thought it would, making him think it was just a game bug. But then he sees the golem move. It throws a punch, but with a huge delay. He quickly realized the problem wasn't a bug, it was the golem's pathetic movement speed. And that infuriated him. After all, this whole game was about speed and reflexes. Built on a pay-to-win model. Meanwhile, the guild leaders' meeting was officially underway. Nurgle, the head of the Ares Guild, thanks everyone for showing up. Shev, the infamous Red Buffalo Slayer, also seems pleased to see so many familiar faces. Berg, leader of the Big Smile Guild, looks anything but happy to be there, and Chase shows zero satisfaction with attending this meeting at all. Berg grumbles that out of 30 invited guilds, only 4 of them even bothered to show up. Shev, however, counters that it's actually more than he was expecting. Nurgle, the organizer, is genuinely surprised by the low turnout. Now you have to understand, these top 30 guilds are locked in fierce, non-stop competition. A meeting like this is a rare event, let alone one with everybody attending. Nurgle reveals the Hydra Guild has uncovered the corrupted Count's identity and is planning the final raid in just 1 month. Shev has to admit that's impressive. No other guild had even gotten close, putting Hydra way ahead of the pack. To make matters worse, Berg warns that Hydra could monopolize all future main quests. And if that happens, it would be game over for everyone else in the room. Chase finally speaks, telling Berg, "You and anyone else who's scared should just shut your mouth." Annoyed, Berg shoots back, "Are you looking for a fight?" But Shev and Nurgle quickly intervene, reminding them that this isn't why they're here. And here it is, folks. Nurgle proposes an alliance against the Hydra Guild. If they all agree, they would promise to stop all hostilities until the corrupted Count's missions are done and share all their intel. Shev isn't a fan of these kinds of deals, but he sees no other way out, and he isn't alone in that thinking, even if they all hate each other. There was no choice but to accept the alliance, and that included Chase. Later at her home, Chase reflects on everything that just happened while taking a bath. She thinks it's even more humiliating than she'd imagined. Not only had she failed to defeat the Chapter 1 boss on her own, but now she had to stoop to an alliance with her rivals. But Chase knew there was nothing else to be done. After all, if the Hydra Guild completed the quest all by themselves, it would be bad for everyone. Better to share the spoils with an alliance than to end up with absolutely nothing. Concluding her thoughts, Chase decides it's best to wait for the next opportunity to make her move. Then Chase orders all her guild members to keep a close eye on Hydra and report any suspicious movements. Victory was her only goal, no matter what it took. Now back to our protagonist. Jihyun finds himself standing in the Adventurers Association once more. An NPC asks him to go to Boro Forest. The NPC explains that an agent named Miggy has vanished there, so Jihyun would likely find clues to his disappearance. But Jihyun argues back, that entire area is swarming with level 70 monsters. At his current level, he couldn't even set foot in there. However, the NPC insists that Jihyun, as Himri's apprentice, is perfect for the mission. But if he refuses this task, he'll lose his status as a corruption tracker. After leaving the association, Jihyun feels completely lost. The quest window flashes warnings about all the dangers ahead. Plus, if he doesn't accept, he'll lose everything he's achieved so far. Jihyun realizes that taking on quests way above his level, just to power level faster, had completely backfired. He'd even completed some tough missions before, but luck had been on his side until now. And let's be real. By constantly accepting quests way beyond his level, trust me, just when our hero thought he was getting stronger, the game cooked up an even bigger challenge. And the worst part, he couldn't abandon the quest, leaving him completely stuck. While he was stressing out, John overheard a few other players talking. Turns out the Hydra Guild was getting super close to finishing the main quest. The other 30 top guilds weren't even in the same leg. The biggest question on everyone's mind was what would happen to the other main quests once the Count was defeated. Hearing this, a light bulb goes off for John. Maybe he didn't have to go to Boiro Forest. After all, far from there, a group of players are staking out a castle. One of them cheers that the mission is almost over, sick of constantly watching the place. But the other player, Natal, a commander in the Hydra Guild, shuts him down. Natal tells his ally not to get ahead of himself. The mission wasn't over yet. They had to keep monitoring the castle until the corrupted Count was dead, period. Plus, they had to be careful not to leak a single piece of information. But then, pay attention, everything changes. A random player bursts onto the scene, shouting, "His name is Kim, rank 3 of the Red Buffalo Guild." Natal immediately demands to know what a Red Buffalo member is doing all the way out here. Kim just declares he's here to take down the high-level mountain boss, and asks if Natal and his buddy are there for the same thing. Unable to reveal the truth, Natal just has to say yes. Kim, however, remarks that they don't look too happy about it. But whatever, Kim says he'll just leave them to it and continue his own mission. This shockingly casual attitude leaves Natal absolutely furious. A moment later, Kim contacts his guild leader. He reports that he found the Hydra commander on site, which confirms their intel. Shev, the assassin, can barely believe what he's hearing. He had received an anonymous tip about the corrupted Count's location, but had completely dismissed it as a lie. Yell warns that information this valuable, given for free, has to be a trap. But Shev thinks it might be an inside job from within the Hydra Guild itself. Maybe someone holding a grudge. I know what you're thinking, but they can't afford to be picky right now. They have to work with the hand they've been dealt. Kim then asks if he can start a fight to buy some time. Shev immediately refuses, ordering Kim to retreat if this really is the Count's location. A much larger Hydra force has to be nearby, and Shev cannot afford to lose a good ally at this critical moment. Kim, however, thinks he's not important enough to be a target. Big mistake, his carelessness was about to be his total undoing. Kim is attacked, sending his superiors into a panic, with a sword pressed right to his throat. Kim spills the beans. His guild wasn't the only one that got the anonymous tip. He announces the arrival of the princess of the Thunder Hunters. This Princess Hahui demands Kim tell her everything he knows, or he'll be instantly eliminated. Meanwhile, a fierce bear prepares for battle. On the other side, John's golem stands its ground. The bear strikes first, slamming its entire body into the massive stone giant. After bracing against the brutal attack, the golem tries to counter, but its movements are way too sluggish. It can't land a single hit. The bear basically turns it into a giant stone punching bag. But John isn't even focused on the fight. He's wondering why everything is so quiet. You see, John had already sent out emails leaking the Count's location, using knowledge from his past life. He was expecting replies by now. He pulled this move believing it was his only way to avoid that dreaded Boiro Forest mission. Once the Count is finally defeated, that whole quest will just vanish. Warlord's main story is split into multiple huge chapters, so you and I know this is a massive event. The game is currently in Chapter 1, titled The Corrupted Count. And just like that, with the Count's defeat, the chapter ends and all related missions are forcibly closed, paving the way for a new story. Jihan knows he can't take on the Count himself, not yet. He's still way too weak for that kind of fight. So he'd rather let someone else handle the dirty work. He doesn't even care who. As long as the Count falls, his master plan moves forward. That's why he leaked the intel to a bunch of different guilds. He needed someone to take the bait. But instead, his system pings him. The Hydra Guild has started a live broadcast. At that exact moment, his golem gets smashed by the bear it was about to finish. But Jihan steps in, landing a decisive strike on the monster. I need to watch this broadcast in peace. So I don't want any distractions, he says coldly. With that, Jihan tunes into the live stream. A Hydra member is boasting that they were the first to identify the corrupted Count, and they're already planning the raid. They've even got a date locked in. Jihan lines in, hoping it's soon. And when he hears the date, his jaw just about hits the floor. The Hydra Guild spokesperson announces the raid is set for 3 days from now. Jihan is absolutely ecstatic. This is way faster than he ever could have hoped. He can barely contain his laughter, all while his golem is still brawling with the bear. Jihan figures the Hydra Guild must be rushing, knowing the information got out. He couldn't care less if Hydra gets the glory. They've been a top guild from the start and have more than enough power to clear the mission. All Jihan needs to do is sit back, wait for the mission to end, and everything will go his way. But what happens next shocks the entire player base to its core. The Hydra Guild was completely and utterly annihilated. Jihan, watching from home, is in total disbelief. He mutters, if you're going to attempt a raid, at least prepare for it. Don't get wiped out in less than an hour. Jihan realizes he totally overestimated Hydra. Now he has to figure out a new plan. Just then, he gets a new notification. The Red Buffalo Guild is starting a live stream. Jihan knows their leader, Shev the Slayer. Shev announces that since Hydra failed so spectacularly, the map is resetting. He tells his team, this enemy is strong enough to wipe out an entire top-tier guild. Not only that, he admits they don't have a lot of reserve supplies, which seriously lowers their chances. Still, for the pride of the Red Buffalo Guild, Shev declares they will rise to the challenge. His members erupt in cheers. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like a terrible idea, right? They're nowhere near as strong as the Hydra Guild that just got destroyed. But then Shev announces he's not going in alone and introduces his partner. The leader of the Thunder Hunter Guild, the one and only Thunder Queen. And trust me, you and I are just as floored as Jihan is by this. He never dreamed Kyeon would team up with a rival guild. We flash back to Shev at his camp, being approached by Kyeon herself. He tells her he never expected her to request a private meeting. She simply states she has no bad intentions, for now they're allies. But Shev counters, reminding her that the Thunder Queen just beat down one of his guild members. She dismisses it as a minor squabble, insisting she's here to talk business. She heard Shev got intel on the corrupted count. Shev tries to play dumb, but Kyeon cuts him off. She says they don't have time for games, and that she already confirmed the leak with other guilds. With Shev, Kyeon immediately points out there's no way he could have tracked that down alone. He obviously had help from the outside. Completely cornered. Shev finally gives in, but claims he has no idea where the info came from. Kyeon then asks if he seriously believes the Hydra Guild can succeed. She's certain they can't win. After all, Hydra completely rushed their raid just to be the first. But a main quest this huge isn't something you can just speedrun. Kyeon says the smart play would have been to let other guilds fail first, then use their intel to build a solid plan. So Shev asks, what exactly are you getting at here, Chase? Then, shocking everyone, Sil slams her sword straight into the table. Watch this power move. She immediately proposes an alliance between their guilds to hit the raid the second Hydra fails. At first, Shev thinks she's just bluffing, but then he sees it, pure, unwavering determination in her eyes. Back in the present, Shev knows she wasn't bluffing. She's giving this joint raid everything she has, and together, they've finally reached the Count. The Count, however, couldn't care less. He unleashes a swarm of his monsters to deal with the players invading his home. Shev realizes that even with 2 guilds, they're getting pushed back. Still, he watches Sil fight on, not giving an inch. Seeing this, Shev makes a vow to protect her. He yells for the Thunder Queen to push forward, promising he'll clear a path. With that, Sil charges ahead, leaving Shev to cover her back. But as she closes in on the Count, the enemy just sneers, asking how she even dares to face him. He throws a flurry of attacks her way, but she dodges every last one. It doesn't take long for Sil to get in close. Sil goes for the finishing blow, but gets caught off guard, struck hard by the Count. Yeah, this boss wasn't going down that easy. He managed to snare his target in a trap. Seeing this, Shev's heart sinks, but you and I both know Sil hasn't given up. Not yet, she gathers her power, slicing clean through the tentacles holding her. And now, she's more determined than ever to put this guy down. Sil closes in again, getting right into striking distance. With one mighty swing, she cleaves the Count straight in half with her massive sword. Zev is absolutely stunned by her success. He admits to himself that Sil is way more terrifying than he ever imagined. The whole thing was broadcast live, and Jae-hun was floored to see Keolian defeat the Count. He's furious but tries to calm himself down, saying the kill was all that mattered. No matter who got the credit, Jae-hun tells his rival to enjoy it, because that will be her last victory. He was absolutely certain that, in the end, his revenge would be complete. Meanwhile, in the Balkaz Mountains, John was starting a new adventure with his team. After his revival, he knew his one true goal was getting revenge on those who took him out. That's why Jae-hun kept pushing into more and more dangerous zones, hunting for the power he needed to get it done. Hours earlier, that same day, Jae-hun and his crew arrived at the entrance to the Balkaz Mountains, only to find the way blocked by a strange field. He realized they could only get through by meeting a specific condition. This area was locked until Warlord's Chapter 2. So the moment the Count's main quest was finished, he could walk right in without a problem. Stepping inside, John realized he was the first to ever pass the barrier, becoming the pioneer of this entire map. He knew this was his moment to shine. He'd arrived figuring an uncharted map would be some killer content. But John immediately finds himself staring down level 60 wild boars. At level 41, John's only option was to make a run for it. Back in the present, he's wondering why he had the worst luck, running into these monsters right from the start. He couldn't mess around either, because it was only a matter of time before other players showed up to explore this map. To try and shift the odds, John sends his skeletons into the fray, but it was completely pointless. His entire team gets wiped out in a matter of seconds. John's not even surprised, saying it was just a distraction anyway. With that, John unleashes his magic on the monsters, freezing them right where they stand. Now all his targets were totally vulnerable, but then his luck runs out again, and John slips on a banana peel that came out of nowhere. Nearby, a monkey starts cackling at his fall. This is an armored monkey, a monster known for playing dirty tricks on humans. Jae-hun swears he's going after that monkey. But he forgot about the boars and discovered the hard way that his freeze spell doesn't last forever. Just as he thought he was about to get taken out, a light appears at the end of the tunnel. And watch this, John is stunned as an arrow slams into the boar attacking him. Not only that, but a single arrow somehow managed to take down all the monsters. John wondered how in the world someone could defeat so many with just one shot. After the monsters were gone, a hunter approaches and asks, "Are you all right?" Far away at Sururyu Castle, a group of players moves through the area when something stops them in their tracks. Their eyes go wide in absolute shock. Another player was decked out in the White Mamba armor set, which is some incredibly rare and expensive gear. What's more, they had never seen this guy around before, and yep, you and I both know who this is. It's the same Hydra member who once hunted Jae-hyun. He turns to his ally, "What did you find out?" His ally replies, "No guild has the information we need." After all, the intel about the corrupted Count came from an anonymous free source, so its origin is impossible to trace. The player brings up Hi-Ho Mask, but his ally just shakes her head. He's just posting his usual videos, nothing out of the ordinary. Besides, she couldn't believe some rookie would have access to such valuable information. The player then says he's heading to his next helper job at the Sweepers Guild. Meanwhile, he orders his ally to focus only on finding the person who leaked the intel. Because no matter who they are, they must pay for shattering the game's balance. Meanwhile, Jae-hun was in a deep conversation with the hunter who just saved his life. Jae-hun knew this was none other than Mao, the main NPC of the game's Chapter 2. Mao was ridiculously skilled, having once served as the prince's personal fencing instructor. But an unfortunate incident led to him getting kicked out, and he eventually became the captain of the guards protecting the Bulka's mountains. Jae-han felt his luck had finally turned a corner after running into Mao. However, Mao warned him, "You can't stay here. This place is crawling with nothing but monsters." For Jae-hun's own safety, the hunter urged him to leave these lands before another attack. But Jae-hun knew exactly how to twist this situation around. And trust me, his big brain plan starts right now. He simply states, the corrupted count is dead. But even with the count gone, corrupted monsters still roam these lands. He claimed to be tracking the source of all the corruption, which led him right to this very forest. To unravel this mystery, he needed backup. Maung admitted he had some theories, but absolutely zero hard evidence, so he asked for Jae-hun's help. And just like that, we're on our first official mission together. Jae-hun was all in, immediately accepting. With that, a new quest pops up. Investigate the monsters in the area. For Jae-hun, this was the perfect opportunity to grind some serious experience points. He decided to leave the high-level boars and warrior bears for later and focus on the easier mobs first. That left one very specific target, the armored monkey. Jae-hun swore to make that thing pay for the banana peel incident. Now, trust me, this monkey's forest is a treacherous place where tons of people have fallen for its cruel pranks. But this isn't just any monkey. This thing is a sadistic trickster that loves watching its victims suffer, laughing while they struggle. It lurks in the treetops, waiting for the perfect moment to snipe unsuspecting passersby with banana peels. But during its latest scheme, our main character, Jae-hun, finally shows up and crashes the party. He declares that this little monkey is going to pay. Payback time. With total resolve, Jae-hun begins hunting the little menace. But the creature is cunning, effortlessly dodging his every move. The monkey is unbelievably fast and knows this entire forest like the back of its hand, which only fuels Jae-hun's rage. The dense canopy of trees makes it impossible to land a clean hit. He realizes he needs a new strategy. Jae-hun switches tactics, going for a long-range assault. He hurls his sword directly at the target. Seeing that blade flying towards it, the monkey panics, its judgment clouded by pure fear, almost leading to its doom. But Jae-hun's sword slams into a tree instead, causing the monkey to erupt in triumphant laughter. But Jae-hun remains totally unfazed, revealing the sword was just a diversion. A second later,